Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Read and Reread. I am Angelia, and today it's time for Friday Reads on August 25th. Oh my goodness. All right, the month is almost over. What are we to do? Nothing, I guess. So, anyway, I'll talk about this week in reading. I hope that you've had a good week. We had a tropical storm. Oh my goodness. I just see a really big lizard out on my patio. I'm distracted, and he's doing a mating dance. He's popping up and down and blowing out his little airbag thing. Oh my gosh! I hope he finds what he's looking for. Gosh, focus, Angelia, focus. We had Tropical Storm Harold a few days ago, and that was, I mean, it was fine. It was a lot of wind and rain. The power didn't go out. We really needed the rain, so it's all good, but I think it blew in something that has inflamed my allergies. So even though I'm going to talk about some rather sad literature this week, the bags under my eyes are not due to my excessive weeping, but it just so, I don't know, they're just like itchy and burning, and oh, these bags. If I was traveling this week, they would charge me a fee for carrying these things on, but what can I do? So if I look beat down and haggard, it's not due to the reading material or the the pressures of life. I just have bad sinuses. Anyway, I have nothing at all to report in the world of TV viewing. We are in a terrible TV slump. We are watching and still enjoying Reservation Dogs and Only Murders in the Building, but they only put out one episode a week, and we have tried and failed to watch about 4 or 5 different shows in the past week where we've watched one episode, 2 episodes. We just bail right and left. Apparently, we are really, really picky because we only watch shows that are like 85 or 90 or above on Rotten Tomatoes, and people have told us they enjoy them. And some of these things got 97s and 100s, and we still watch one or two, and we're just like, bleh. So I don't know what the answer is, but I'm sure it'll come around soon. And so I'm glad it's not a reading slump. A TV slump, at least you can say, well, forget this. I'm just going to go read some more, and that kind of solves the problem for one evening anyway. So anyway, got nothing to tell you about TV shows. So let's move on to books. And like I said, it's been a rather sad jag. In fact, when I got to a certain point in this week, I stopped and I looked back in my reading journal, and I realized that every single book except Crook Manifesto this month has been a remarkably sad book, and it was starting to drag on me. So you will see my solution to that momentarily. So, but let's talk about these books because they were good. I don't regret them, but just all in a row, it kind of builds up after a while. I was reading Mayflies when we were at this point last week, and I was talking about how the book is divided into 2 sections, roughly half of in each section. And one is about, it's set in the 80s, and it is about a group of young boys, young men, 18 to 20 years of age, and particularly 2 that are really close friends in this group, James and Tully. James is a boy. He's bookish. He's academic oriented. He loves to read, and he's the kid who really should go on to college, but he doesn't have any family support at all. They're not even there anymore. Both of his parents have just drifted away, but he is sort of taken under wing by his friend Tully and Tully's mother Barbara, and they take good care of him, even though Tully's father is mentally ill. But they include him as much as they can. They encourage him, plus a teacher at school who helps him get through his final year and apply to college. So at the beginning of the story, he is about to go off to university, and his friend Tully, who's a couple years older, is working a blue-collar job like his father, but he too is longing for an escape hatch. And so they go off on this magical weekend to a musical festival in Manchester. They're Scottish, but they go to Manchester for the weekend to this actual music festival whose name I have once again forgotten. It's the 10th summer something or other. I'll put it up again. But it was a fantastic festival with everyone that was exciting at that time. And in the middle of all of the noise and the music and the drunkenness and the crazy stuff that the group of boys get up to, there are some really special moments of conversation and friendship between these two that sort of, as far as a novel goes, solidify the kind of friendship bond that they have. And the second half is in the current day when they are both around 50, and Tully calls James with a terrible health diagnosis that he has received. This isn't really a spoiler because if you look at any little synopsis of this book or the movie that apparently was made of it, this is given away right away. And that the second part of this book is about Tully, who's received this terminal cancer diagnosis, and he asks for James' support. And the book shifts. So the first whole half is the vibe there is nostalgia, and then the second half is really sad. It's about dying and about facing death and the way I'm going to put this down. It's about different approaches to this, the reactions. And I thought it was really, this is when I had to stop and I felt like, is this autobiographical? Because this feels really personal. And so I looked and I realized that I saw that the dedication says to Keith and Joy Martin. And I found out that this book is indeed about Andrew O'Hagan's experience with the illness of his longtime friend Keith. And so then, it kind of added a whole new layer to the emotional content of this part of the story, and about Tully's reaction to this news and what he wants to do with his time, his partner's reaction and what she thinks should happen, how James feels and his being torn between the kind of support that James is asking for, and then how he feels. And then he also has his wife and she's chiming in. So it's really the four of them are the main characters in this part of the story, and navigating that time in their lives. And I don't want to give away too many plot points, but I thought that it was really well done, because a lot of times not so much in books. Books are usually much better about these things, but definitely in movies, when there's a person who gets this terrible diagnosis, it is then this maudlin celebration, how to live life to the fullest and fighting to the end, or else some sort of, zen-tastic acceptance of mortality. And so this doesn't do any of that stuff. It's kind of messy. It's kind of inconsistent with how people feel, what they say versus how they feel, what they're trying to do, and they don't quite succeed. And so the whole thing is I thought it was very, I just thought that O'Hagan handled it really well. And I think what a hard book to write based on your real best friend, and looking back at their youth and then what is going on today and what they thought they had in front of them, and now the path has changed. And so it was very good. I enjoyed it a lot, but it was definitely, it got sadder and sadder and sadder as it went on. It started on a high. I was like, oh yeah, I was that age then, and the bands, and that would be great to be there. And then by the end, you're just like, ooh. So that, I did enjoy it. And I'm going to leave for you a couple of the songs that from the bands that they talk about that I like especially in the show notes, so you can also have a nostalgic 80s moment if you wish at the end of the video. And then I plunged right into another really sad book, which is This Other Eden by Paul Harding. And this is on the Booker long list. He previously has two other books. His first book, Tinkers, was a surprise winner of the Pulitzer Prize. And then he has another one called Enon in between. And because Enon is mentioned in this book as a nearby town, I guess that also takes place in Maine. But I thought this was a really good book. It's not too long. I mean, it's not short enough to be like a shorty September kind of thing. It's 202 pages. So it's on the short side. And um, there, I could think of some things I wish I had a little bit more of here, but I'd rather have too little than too much, if you know what I mean. Like I'd rather be left wanting a few more details or a little bit more of some person's story than to feel like, where was the editor? So this is not too bad of a problem to have. I want to read a little piece. This is the very first thing in this book, so there's no spoiler here, but this is a little excerpt before the story begins that is from the Maine Coast Heritage Trust. And I did go and read their material on their website about Malaga Island, which is the inspiration for Apple Island in this book. And here's what it says. Malaga Island was home to a mixed-race fishing community from the mid-1800s to 1912, when the state of Maine evicted 47 residents from their homes and exhumed and relocated their buried dead. 8 islanders were committed to the Maine School for the Feeble-Minded. Can you imagine a place actually being called that, like out on their sign in front of the building? I think the best plan would be to burn down the shacks with all of their filth. Then Governor Frederick Plaisted told a reporter at the time. In 2010, the Maine legislature passed a resolution expressing its profound regret. So I have never heard of this community on an island off the coast of Maine, and probably a lot of us have not. And maybe even I read some articles that said even people who lived there didn't all know about it. But there was a community that began in the late 1700s and continued until 1912 that was a mixed race group of people. They fished, some of them had jobs on the mainland, but they lived in relative peace and isolation in this community. And Paul Harding in this book fictionalizes the story of the end of this era. So at the beginning of the book, we have a wonderful narrative by a woman in the story who's one of the oldest residents named Esther, and she's telling her grandchildren a story that they've asked for time and again about a horrific hurricane that it had occurred about 100 years previously. And she combines in her telling what she actually knows about this event, but she really amps it up and it takes on Noah's Ark proportions, and then she gets so caught up in the story that it turns into a first person narrative where she's imagining herself in the role of her great great grandmother, and it just has a dramatic beginning to a story that is one of those ones that is very dramatic at times, things that simmer and then explode at various points in the story. So we have the people that live on this island, and it is a small band of families. They are an unusual group, and the author takes time to move around from person to person or small family group to group and kind of describe them, give them life, give them personalities. This is where the novel really shines, when there is narrative time given to some of these different characters to develop them and make them real in juxtaposition to how they are viewed by the white townspeople on the mainland. And so the time has come, it's the early 1900s, and a retired white school teacher has started spending his summers there running a school. And in the course of and it's the traditional one-room school of that time where he's teaching some math and history and reading and Latin and Bible verses and things like that. And he is noting, to his surprise, which wouldn't surprise any actual contemporary teacher, that some of the children are gifted in different ways, but he is very much hobbled by his racism and his aversion to black people in general. He kind of zeroes in on this one kid who could pass for white, who is artistically gifted, and he's thinking to himself that he thinks he could get that kid off the island and lodged with some people he knows to go to art school. And during these years that he is coming, Esther, who the long-running elder of this community, along with another guy with the incredible name Zachary Hand to God Proverbs, who lives in a tree. Got to read it to understand. But she realizes that his apparently benevolent appearance on the island probably does not bode well for them. And indeed, attracting the attention of the mainland is not to their benefit, because not only are they caught up in the eugenics craze of that time and thinking that these people they need to be stopped, they need to be disbanded, they need to not make any more children. And also, this piece of land has tourism potential, but there's this bunch of people of color living in homemade little houses here, and it's ruining the view. So that's what is bubbling up in this story. The life that they have been living, what they cherish, what their heritage is, versus what is about to come, and then what happens. And then we also have Ethan, who is the artistic kid who takes a trip to pursue his future. It's very sad. It's very harsh. It is a stain on American history. And as the little preface shows, that it was not addressed at all until 2010. Just, it's another one of those shameful incidents that's been swept under the rug. So I am glad that Paul Harding dug this up and brought it to light in a fictional way. And I did enjoy reading actual historical information. And he did correlate very closely with the actual inhabitants that were documented at the time, and really only took leaps of fancy as far as giving them actual personalities and some speculation about connections between people and things like that. So I did enjoy it. I liked it. I liked it a lot better than Old God's Time as far as books that I have read. I think I've read 3 or 4. This is probably my favorite one so far, but it also isn't screaming out to me like, best book of the year. It's got to win the prize. I'm still kind of waiting to see if there's another book that just really blows me away, but I did enjoy reading this and learning about this actual incident through the fiction. So at that point, that is when I reached my peak on the sad books, and I went back through my journal and I realized that except for Crook Manifesto, it has been wall to wall sadness, angst, grief, trauma. Like every single book has been some kind of tour of bad things, including even the kids' book that I picked up that was really good. It was about something terrible that happened. And so at this point, I just said, okay, I don't know what, I did know what. The thing that I thought I was going to read next was to go back and do a reread of How High We Go in the Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu, which I love that book, and I wanted to reread it before the voting for the BookTube prize, but this was not the time. I was like, no, I cannot read another book about grief and death and loss right now. I'm going to lose it. And so the book that you can probably guess, the book that has been bubbling up and whispering out to me for a couple of weeks, finally won me over. And so I picked up Tom Lake by Ann Patchett, and I am loving this. I just want to sit and read this book. It's one of those books where once you start, you are highly annoyed that you have to do anything else, that people keep wanting to speak to you, or you have to attend to human needs like eating or sleeping, because the book is so good. Ann Patchett is just, she is so smooth. She has such a firm grasp of her writing steering wheel that she's just one of those people that writes a book that sounds like it's not about much, but you are completely engrossed. So in this book, she has set the book in the summer of 2020, and a family that owns a fruit orchard is trying to pick the cherry harvest with basically just mainly their family members, because their seasonal workers were mostly not able to come in this year of 2020. And their three adult daughters that are in their early to mid 20s have come home that spring because of COVID-19, which is not specifically named in the book, which I didn't notice until I was watching another video, but it's obvious that that's what it is. And they do refer to, I think they refer to a pandemic at some point. But they're all home. The oldest one does live on the farm. She's already gone to college, and she lives in a little house on the property because she wants to work the farm, and that's what she studied, was agriculture in college. And then the other two, one is in school for veterinary science, the other one wants to be an actor. And of course, school has shut down and they're online, and they have also come home. And in the course of the daily tedium of getting up early and picking the fruit and all the effort that goes into it, which by the way sounds like really hard work, and I would not want to live on a farm, even though this farm sounds beautiful. But they asked their mom to tell a story that they've never heard the whole thing, and it is about when she was young, in her early 20s, and she briefly dated an actor who went on to become famous and win an Oscar and everything. They found out about this back when they were little girls, when they were watching one of his movies one time. Their dad drifted through, and they were like, he was kind of like, haha, your mom went out with him once. And they were like, oh, what? And so to various extents, this has been a topic in the household ever since, but she's never really told this whole story. So they say, well, do you need to tell us the story about that summer that you met Peter Duke? And it was when she was performing in a summer stock production of Our Town, and she was playing Emily. And so, but she really goes back to high school when she explains the first time that she interacted with this play and acting. And so she is gradually telling them a story, but she isn't telling them the whole story. We get more of the story than her daughters get. She is carefully editing out certain things and keeping them for herself. And she does say at one point, what they're really wanting to hear is not what I'm going to tell them. But she is telling this story. And the book, what is it about? It is about these people at this moment. It is about family. It's about memory. It's about different types of love at different points in your life. It's about acting and theater and creativity. It's about the point in your life, in your youth, when you are trying to figure out what you're going to do. It's about relationships, family relationships. It's about a lot of things, and I feel like there's something in there that most people can relate to, but it won't be the same for everybody. Some people will be there for all the theater stuff. Some people will be there for the reflections on memory and family connections. Some people will be there for the mother and daughter things. I mean, there's a lot in there for a lot of readers. And it's just a story at the hands of one of our really skillful storytellers. And I'm already sad at the somewhat slimness of it, but I'm also finding it so satisfying. There's wonderful surprises in the structure as well. I am absolutely loving it, and I feel that I will continue to love it. I don't feel that it will let me down. And if I have any little caveats about possible weaknesses, I will save them till I've finished reading the whole book to reflect on. Because right now it's just kind of cooking along, and I don't know yet. All right, so that is where I am at. And what else? I finished my summer reading challenge at the library, and I don't even know. Oh yeah, here it is. Finished my cute little bookmark. And I got a bunch of flack from my husband about how I was probably the only dork who actually finished the whole adult reading challenge. But I don't know. I'm sure I'd like to know where the fellow hardcore nerds are in town and make a book club with them. I have a whole bunch of things on deck, and I'm gonna see where the wind takes me. I'm gonna have a moody moment. So you'll have to wait and see. So I hope that you've had a great week. Let me know what you've been reading, or what, if you've read any of the ones that I have, or what you have coming up next. I'd love to hear your comments, and I'm excited about what's coming up. My Shorty September is right around the corner. I need to do an August TBR. I've been tagged in a couple of fun tags that I need to attend to in the next week or two. And I also want to do one of my time warp videos where I look back at the old journal. So I've got plenty of content on the horizon. So I hope you have a great weekend, and I will see you soon with something on Tuesday. Don't know what it is yet. All right, bye.